Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. This is going to be my review for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers ThreeZero White Ranger figure. Now these are a series of figures that have recently come out and they're pricier, meant to be collector's grade figures of basically around a 12-inch scale. They're kind of like some of the similar-ish in the family of kind of like a distant cousin of like Hot Toys type of things or like the Medicom toys. I don't know if they still do those for Rider, but I think you know what I'm talking about when you're looking at these. But they're really pricey. They're $100 or more depending on the one you get. So I was very selective about the ones I wanted to try out at first, which is why these reviews have taken so long. So I'm going to be covering White Ranger today, and then Draken will be next. And it's interesting to say the least. But let's get rid of a few little minuscule details here at the beginning. And by minuscule details, I mean the things you're here for in the review. And by that I mean the accessories! No, but he does come with a little variety of hands, which I wanted to show off. You kind of have some posed action hands here. Some sort of, like, I don't know how to do a high five hand because my thumb's randomly sticking out hand. Kind of your generic unfolded hand, which is what he has here. That's the ones he has on him, which is just kind of straight out hands. You have your closed fists, and then you have hands to hold the weapons, which are actually really kind of hard to manipulate. Like, you really have to pull them apart to get the weapon in there. But he does come with these variety of hands, and then Saba, which we will show off now. I am not going to take this out of his hand because it was honestly a pain in the ash to get out. So details on this thing are excellent. It looks absolutely great. All kinds of really nice and fine little details here in Saba. You can't open his mouth or anything, so it's pretty much worthless, but the metallic paint looks nice. It overall just looks really show accurate and great, and I'm really pleased with the way the weapon looks. And nice little detail here, I mean, other than the fact that this metallic dark silver here looks really nice, is it actually can do the extended version or the retracted version, which is really nice. So accessories wise, I mean, that's the only thing he really needs, but they did a really good job on that. A minor little detail, not a lot of people like when I go over this, but the packaging on these is really nice. Like, it looks really professional. I really like the art on there on the front and on the back there, and I think it looks really cool. And then you open it up and you can see where the figure was. So for whatever reason you buy these and don't open them, which is kind of be silly to buy something so expensive to not open them, but it's just really nice packaging and I wanted to draw attention to it. Right, now on to the main event itself, the figure, which I have some very mixed thoughts on. Let's go over the positives first, and I'll say for the most part I think the helmet looks really nice. Maybe if I'm being uber nitpicky, it's a little bit more slender than it should be, and I think there's some figures, like even the Lightning one, that gets the rounded look a little more accurate, but that feels like being nitpicky, and I think for the most part the helmet looks really good. I think the gold paint on the helmet looks really nice. The shine of the helmet looks really nice. No QC issues or any like stray paint dots or anything like that, so I'm happy about that. I think the armor looks really good. I think one of the strongest looking White Ranger armors here, with the gold having a nice shine to it, but it doesn't come off like cheaply shiny, and you got the nice black matte finish there. The symbol looks really good there. As I mentioned, for a positive, Saba looks really good there. And you know, for the most part it looks decent-ish when you're looking at it, and they do a good job on the gold paint parts. Now, I have mixed thoughts on this figure outside of that, though. As you can see, a lot of the material here is cloth material to represent how it looks in the show. They do that kind of on the Rider ones, and I think they did a couple Medicom like Gokaigers and stuff, and that can be hit and miss. And for me, it looks a little more silvery. The background here and the shooting of the camera makes it look even more so, but even in person, it looks a little more silvery. Now, when you're in the show, sometimes it does have kind of a pearly shine quality to it, but this just looks a tad too silvery, and sometimes it looks a little bit cheap. And between the way this looks and then the sort of material here for stuff like the belt. Now this part looks okay, but this part and this part looks a little bit cheap. And between this and this, it reminds me more so of like 90s Power Rangers dolls. If anybody ever saw those, it just looks, I feel, at least in my opinion, a little cheaper than it should. I know it's kind of hard to get, but it just didn't look quite as professional as I thought it would. And the sort of silver look of it makes him look more like a Silver Ranger, and there's kind of a discrepancy too between like the bright white of the helmet and the silver here. But that's not my only issue. Also, this thing feels a little bit cheap in some areas. The articulation is really nice. You know, you have a nice ball hinge joint here, a double elbow joint. You do have swiveling possible, but obviously you can't do it all the way because of the cloth. You have swiveling at the wrist. Nice ball joint you hear, it's really clicky there. Knee joint here, and again, it kind of is be hindered by that, and when you bend it, it's going to look like something seriously bad happened, like, dude, are you okay? And then you have a nice ball joint here at the foot. And then you have chest and waist articulation. Again, you kind of get the all-around motion, but it's going to be a bit hindered by the cloth. You do have a nice ball joint on the neck. One thing I've noticed in both of them, spoiler alert for Draken, is when you push the helmet down, especially for the first time you own it, it'll start pushing it back upwards because of the cloth will like catch it, so you'll put it down and it'll spring back up. If you own it for a little while and kind of mess with it, it'll eventually get a little bit looser, but I noticed that when I was first testing out the articulation, I was like doing this and it would spring back up, so I would notice that. So it does have decent articulation, but the joints in particular, at least on mine, feel a little bit loose. Not loose like they're going to flail around if I, flop it around, but loose like it'll become even more loose over time. And something in particular that I noticed too is the feet pop off really easily right there. Like, spoiler alert again for Draken, when I opened both him and Draken, as soon as I took it out of the box, I didn't even touch the feet. I just took it out and the foot plopped right off, and if they feel really loose and cheap with the feet, which can be really annoying. And then also when you take the feet off, these pieces slide off, and that also happened to me when the foot popped off and I turned it upside down as it started to slide off. And I wish that these pieces, I don't know why they would need to slide off, and that makes it feel even cheaper. And then when you're switching out the hands here, you can see that the other hands they don't have the ball joint, so you have to pull out the ball joint, and I had to use like tweezers or something, which I just personally find to be kind of annoying. That might seem like a high maintenance thing, I don't know, but I feel like for the price you're paying, it would be nice if they all just included their own hinges. It just felt a little bit unnecessary to me. And also, just in terms of the overall look, I feel when you're looking at it, the legs feel just a tad too long. It's not like horribly offensive, but it definitely feels a little bit ill-proportioned. And again, when you get in certain poses like this, it looks a little bit awkward. It's just, for me, I'm not saying this is an absolutely awful figure or anything, but I'm saying for the price of this, I'm pretty disappointed, to be honest, because it's a very pricey figure and you're kind of expecting to get something that feels at least close to worth the money you spent for it. And for me, outside of some of the details looking decent and certain times when you have it in a certain pose, it looks kind of cool, it feels very cheap and awkward looking. Like you can even see here how awkward this looks here, just bending it, and then stuff like just the cheap feel and the falling apart nature. Like sometimes when I took this out of the box, it reminded me of that scene in Jingle All the Way when he got the fake Turbo Man doll and it just fell apart. And I was not expecting that for $100+ figure. So personally, I don't know what other people's experiences are with this, but I can't really recommend this unless you have your heart really set on it and you find a really good deal, like half off or more. I don't know if that's even possible, but that's the only way I can recommend it, because it's not irredeemable, but for the price, I find it to be very disappointing. And I think there's better alternatives. Obviously, if you're in the market for something of this scale and style, there's not really a whole lot of better options, or really any that I can think of. But if you're willing to try something different, I could recommend the Lightning Collection figure over it for something that's just as articulated and you don't have as many issues with, and you're getting your money's worth for the price. Or if you were looking for something that was kind of like a higher grade feeling collectible for your display that wasn't like a Lightning figure or a basic figure, I recommend those PCS collectible statues. It's not articulated, but it gives you that same professional feel for a much better price, and I think it looks overall better. And not to mention, is it a better price at retail, but those frequently go on sale. So if for whatever reason your specific needs are a professional looking White Ranger display piece, I would highly recommend the PCS collectible statue over this. It's just, for me, it's a disappointment. But that's about it for this one, guys. Until next time, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.